We've all dabbled in a sequel, one place or another. Halo 2, The Equalizer 2, the Second World War, Another Slice of Pizza, and so on and so forth. No matter which sequel you've enjoyed, there's always a chance that there might be more, which is great, right? More of that thing you love, but I'm trying to remember the last time I was excited about it. Jokes aside, kind of. When creating a sequel, normally the first game has created a world filled with plenty of areas to explore in terms of narrative, characters, and evolving factors that give the creative team so much freedom to work with to bring a second game to life. The first game was concluded, finished, and ready to be put on a shelf next to the rest. But sometimes creative teams are looking at making a sequel or a franchise even before they've proven they can deliver. Nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong with having ambition, but let's just focus on the first, okay? Okay. But then somewhere in development, Bruce Big Balls throws out the idea to hint at a sequel. The circle jerk of games to come begins. Some games are given a huge plot hole that only a sequel can fill. And while this isn't always a bad thing as it can drum up hype or have players excited for the next installment, what if the game doesn't do well? Obviously I'm not talking on specific games that have done this, that have made a huge impact in terms of sales and basically greenlit the sequel to come out. No, I'm more focused around games that did this to simply fade away into the dark to never be seen again. If it doesn't sell well, then only the people who are invested get burnt on the consumer side. Just to specify, I do mean unfinished stories, and not like them not making another game. Like if the story's unfinished and they decide they don't want to work with the IP anymore, then that's their call, and you've got your conclusion in the games. Obviously nothing wrong with wanting more of the thing you love, but I'm meaning more stories that are purposely unfinished. Regardless if I understand the reasoning or not, I'm not a fan of sequel bait, and I just want to talk on some games that set up their next adventure only to never follow up. Now there will be spoilers for these games, but I'm going to do my best to navigate around them without giving away the exact scene. But if you want to go into these games blind, then please turn off the video and go experience them yourself, as I don't want to ruin that for you. This is the only spoiler warning. I do want to mention one thing that is my honourable mention of Halo 2. Halo 2 kinda gets the pass nowadays in my eyes, as Halo 3 came out and made it one of the best trilogies in FPS gaming in my opinion. But to be sat watching Master Chief say, "finishing this fight," then credits, I'm lucky I never had a temper, because I was hating the fact that I had to wait. I say this, I finished the game and ran through to the living room to rapidly explain the legendary story that I had just had with Halo 2 to my mum. I certainly wasn't likely that bothered back then. And while saying that, I've just clocked that I've completely overlooked the fact that Halo Combat Evolved is also guilty of this. The Halo trilogy is one of my favourite trilogies of all time, and two of them are dirty little sinners of predetermined sequel bait. Nice. I will move on now. So let's talk about games that weren't so fortunate as to get sequels. Days Gone wasn't received that well and failed to meet expectations in a few ways. I've also had conversations with a few friends who it just didn't click with. But for me, I really enjoyed this game. There was something therapeutic about taking care of your bike. You take care of it and it takes care of you. As in it gets you away from danger. Or, of course, travelling is easier with it. So I believe you need to 100% the game to get this ending, but once you do, you're contacted over the radio to go meet a certain someone, to which they explain that the current situations with all the freakers and the virus is only the beginning. This Marvel-esque after credits moment set the tone for the next game, as something with more stakes, but it has been shared that Sony refused to pitch for a second game. Of course, if a game doesn't do well, then yes, it seems rather pointless to fund the IP that can be deemed a failure. But Days Gone had sold 8 million copies, which is nothing to scoff at. I am clearly coping with the fact I will never see a sequel to Days Gone, but it's almost like Sony doesn't like money. Oh yeah, Valve just isn't escaping the can't count free allegations. Half-Life 2 Episode 2 goes a different road. As its final moment unravels before you, you're left with this sudden end that has you choked up with either grief, anger, or helplessness. You can't continue the story, you can't fight back, you can't find a sense of closure for everything that has happened. Personally, I believe Half-Life 3 will happen one day, but not because of demand or the masses complaining about it. I believe Half-Life 3 will happen when Valve feels that they have a way to finish the story, which I think is best because it won't be made to make money but out of passion. But until then, the ending of Half-Life 2 Episode 2 will be a cliffhanger that haunts fans of the series. Now, it wasn't really the base game of DMC Devil May Cry's ending that set up for a sequel, but the DLC. You play as Virgil and he becomes more focused around the idea of gaining power, which is one of the first things you learn in Virgil 101. So to see this character who I felt was really done dirty in the base game become a more antagonistic role in the universe was a positive for me. It doesn't matter if people agree on if the DLC was good or not, but the fact that the DLC gave him a bit more edge was needed in my opinion. It also gave him a new perspective which could have been taken in a multitude of ways from that point onwards. The DLC did make him more aggressive, but at the same time more focused on the task at hand. I honestly would love a second DMC Devil May Cry game, but that's mostly based off how good I think the combat can be. Dead Space 3 is weird, and honestly it's confused me for a long time with what the ending even means. When Dead Space 3 released, the ending was the ending. Nothing carries on from here, we are done, thank you for playing. But then EA couldn't have that and decided we are defibbing this game, and boom, DLC. Which, when you get to the end, it's left in a way that is focused around how you perceive it. I personally always thought that this was the end, a dark toned hopelessness that strikes home, that everything you did was merely postponing the inevitable. But others feel like this is setting up for the biggest scale version of Dead Space, which somehow got me on board with it. I can see it from both sides now, but after the failure that was Dead Space 3 in general, and the fact that there's no plan on remaking Dead Space 2 after the first Dead Space remake's underwhelming sales, the idea of a Dead Space 4 is probably quite unlikely to happen. I feel like I'm gonna lose whoever remains at this point. I know that Call of Duty Ghost isn't a game people like very much, but I wanted to know what happened next. Funnily enough, this is the only Call of Duty game I have ever wanted a campaign sequel to. Not because the game is good, but I just wanted to know what happened at the end. It's set up that your character has been tortured and tormented to break your spirit, implying that the character you were will have an importance in the next game. But Ghosts was really disliked. Apart from a handful of people, I have seen nothing but negative comments about this game. But that could be down to who I've been around. Most of Call of Duty Ghosts was not great, but that ending always had me waiting to see the next title. But who cares what I think, let's all get hyped about Black Ops 8. So what's the point of any of this? What's the main point to end this off? Maybe something I said resonated with you, maybe we can come together and fight against it. Or maybe I was just bitching. It's most likely that. Realistically, I've been thinking about this to myself and thought, why not do a video about it and see what happens? Maybe you have examples I didn't mention, and it could spark up a conversation. Be careful with spoilers though. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this, then consider hitting the like, subscribing if you want to see more, and leave a comment saying banana bread if you've made it this far. Anyway, I hope you have a lovely day and or evening, and I'll catch you next time.